All right, let's talk about The Great Gatsby. Or really, the two Great Gatsbys. You've got F. Scott Fitzgerald's 1925 novel. It's subtle, it's poetic, a real masterpiece of literature. And then you've got Baz Luhrmann's 2013 movie, a loud, glittering, over-the-top party of a film. They're telling the same story, but they couldn't be more different. So let's get into how one became the other.
I mean, that's the real puzzle, isn't it? The magic of Fitzgerald's book is all in the words, the way he phrases things, the mood it creates inside your head. It's an internal experience. So how do you take all of that and splash it onto a giant movie screen without it just, falling apart? That was the massive challenge facing Luhrmann.
And his answer, it seems, starts with the guy telling us the story in the first place, our narrator, Nick Carraway. Because from the moment the film begins, he is a fundamentally different person than the one in the book.
Okay, so in the novel, Nick is telling this story years later from the Midwest, looking back on that crazy summer with this really clear-eyed moral judgment. He's the calm observer. But the movie? Whoa, totally different. It puts him in a psychiatric hospital. A doctor tells him he has morbid alcoholism and suggests he write everything down as a form of therapy. Now, this gives the movie a clever reason to have a narrator, but it completely changes who Nick is. And this change is a huge deal. It's a game changer for the whole story. By making Nick a patient, the film basically gives his point of view a medical diagnosis. All his judgments about the rich, about morality, about the American dream, are they a sharp social critique anymore? Or are they just symptoms of his trauma? It's a big risk.
So to get Fitzgerald's incredible writing into the movie, Luhrmann does something pretty bold. He literally throws the words onto the screen. They float through the air, they type themselves out. He calls it poetic glue. It's his way of sticking the movie to the book. But, it's a double-edged sword. It's cool to see the actual text, but sometimes it feels like the movie is just telling you what to think instead of showing you.
Okay, so let's switch gears and talk about the characters themselves, because to make this story work for a big modern audience, the film makes some pretty major tweaks to Gatsby and Daisy.
Yeah, this table really lays it all out. The movie basically sands off all the rough, morally complicated edges. Gatsby, who in the book is this fascinating, kind of shady dreamer, becomes a much more straightforward romantic hero. And Daisy, who is so frustratingly careless in the novel, is remade into this helpless victim you're just supposed to feel sorry for. So how do they pull this off with Gatsby? Well, for one, all his criminal stuff, the bootlegging, the shady deals, it's all kind of pushed way into the background. Instead, we get these huge close-ups of Leonardo DiCaprio looking incredibly heartbroken and vulnerable. The camera just loves him. The goal is to make you root for him, no questions asked. It becomes less of a moral puzzle and more of a straight-up tragic love story. And what about Daisy? Same kind of thing. The movie goes out of its way to make her sympathetic. It cuts scenes from the book that show her being selfish, like how she barely pays attention to her own child. And it really dials up Tom's abusive behavior, so she seems totally trapped. The thing is, when you do that, you kind of take away her power. She stops being a person who makes choices, bad ones maybe, and becomes just a prize for the men to fight over. The Plaza Hotel scene. This is a perfect example of what we're talking about. In the book, when Gatsby's dream finally dies, it's quiet. It happens inside him. He just deflates. But that's not very cinematic, is it? So Luhrmann adds this huge, explosive moment where Gatsby completely loses it, screaming, almost getting violent with Tom. You have to show the breakdown on screen, and this makes it crystal clear for the audience. All right, enough about the people for a second. Let's talk about the world of the movie. The look, the sound. This is probably the most debated part of the entire film. Luhrmann wasn't just trying to show the Roaring Twenties. He was trying to make us feel it.
Yeah, the big one. The question on everyone's mind walking out of the theater, why is Jay-Z in my 1920s movie? It feels so wrong, so out of place, but believe it or not, there's a very specific reason for it. And that reason is a concept called a truth event. The whole idea is that being faithful to a story isn't about getting all the little details right, like using only 1920s music. It's about capturing the original energy, the shock, the feeling it gave people at the time. It's not about being literally accurate, it's about being emotionally accurate. And here's how that works. Back in the 20s, jazz wasn't this classy, old-timey music we think of now. No way. It was new, it was loud, it was scandalous, it was the rebellious sound of the youth. So what music felt that way in 2013? For Luhrmann, the answer was hip-hop.
He used Jay-Z to try and make us feel the same cultural shock that audiences felt hearing jazz for the first time.
And that modern vibe doesn't just stop with the music. It completely changes how the film tackles the biggest theme of all, the American dream itself. I mean, just look at the timing here. Fitzgerald is writing this at the height of the Roaring '20s, a time that felt like the party would never end. The possibilities seemed limitless. Luhrmann, on the other hand, is making his movie right after the 2008 financial crisis, when everyone was feeling pretty cynical about the economy. That's a whole different world.
And the film absolutely leans into that. It's constantly drawing a line between the crazy, unchecked capitalism of the 1920s and, well, the Wall Street culture that led to the big crash. The Valley of Ashes, that gray, dead wasteland in the story, feels even more powerful when you're thinking about modern economic fallout.
So with all these changes, you have to ask, who is this movie even for? There's this great theory that says any adaptation is juggling two audiences. You've got the knowing audience, the people who've read the book a dozen times, and the unknowing audience, the ones who are just there to see a good movie. And a perfect example of this balancing act, cutting Gatsby's dad from the movie. In the book, his dad shows up at the end, and it's just this gut-wrenching moment that proves how truly alone Gatsby was. But for a movie audience, it might feel a little slow. So by cutting it, Luhrmann keeps the focus on the romance and makes the ending cleaner for new viewers. The trade-off is that you lose one of the book's most powerful points about class and loneliness.
Which kind of brings us to the big final question at the heart of this entire movie. With all this glitter and chaos and spectacle, what is it all for? What is the film really trying to say?
Luhrmann's style, it's just a lot. The fast cuts, the insane parties, the confetti, the 3D flying at your face. The argument is that it's all on purpose. It's supposed to be overwhelming. The idea is to make you feel the chaos and the emptiness behind all that wealth.
But, and this is the big but, does it actually work? Because the parties in this movie look awesome. They're so beautiful and seductive and just fun. So does watching it make you think, wow, what a hollow and meaningless lifestyle? Or does it make you think, man, I wish I could go to a party like that? It's a very fine line.
So that's really the tension here, isn't it? Is the movie a brilliant translation of the book's frantic energy for a new generation? Or is it just a gorgeous movie that kind of misses the whole point of Fitzgerald's sharp, sad critique?
So I guess the question is for you. What do you think? After all this champagne and fireworks, does Luhrmann's film really show us the dark side of the American dream? Or does it just end up making that dream look incredibly, irresistibly cool?